Welcome to the Final Frontiers radio show, where we spotlight inspiring missionary endeavors around the globe. Stay tuned to hear how you can personally get involved, helping the Lord's frontline soldiers effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. In this episode, we're going to talk about an opportunity to provide much-needed motorbikes for church planters in Kenya, Africa. We're going to discuss our website ministry project page, along with the need for funding a special church in Honduras. And we'll be asking founder Jon Nelms the question, what were your goals when you started Final Frontiers?
You're listening to the Final Frontiers radio show. This is our May 2019 episode. I'm Daniel Nelms. I'm here with
Jon Nelms,
Michael Horn,
and Joshua Martin.
Today we're going to start by just telling you about a burden that we've got and something that we've started a new project for. In fact, one person has already given for this project. To give 4 motorcycles out in the country of Kenya. We support well over 200 guys there. Not all, but a lot of them do need transportation. They have no transportation whatsoever other than their feet. And so they have to take buses and hitch rides with people, etc. And it really it makes it a lot more difficult for them to get farther and farther out to plant new churches. So what we've started doing, we've started purchasing motorcycles for the guys in this group. Now, we've been doing that for years in the country of India. And it has been phenomenal, the results that we're getting. We want to take those results, shift them over to Kenya, and see what can happen when just a little bit of money is spent to really kind of augment their ministries and make them more efficient. Now, the cost of a motorbike pretty much globally in the place we work is around the same thing. So it's about $1,250
That's it.
per bike. So it's not a small amount of money, but it's not a huge amount of money either. But I believe that this is really going to make a big difference in their lives and their ministries.
Yeah, and when we say motorcycle, we're not talking like a Harley
or something.
It'd be like what we would call here in this country like a little dirt bike or even a scooter.
Sure. Less than 100 cc's.
Yeah.
I can put a video link, too, to show what they look like in India. I've got a video showing all these preachers going around ministering on those bikes.
In a lot of countries, they regulate the size of an engine to 50 cc because a motorcycle is a popular tool for assassins to use, and they don't want them to have a motorcycle faster than the police have. So these are almost like mopeds, really, but they'll carry 2 or 3 people. They're right. Sturdy. It's a good thing because I want you to think about this. Suppose you showed up at your church on a Thursday night or Friday night with other church members to go knocking on doors, to go soul winning, but none of you had a car. None of you had a motorcycle. None of you had a bicycle. Well, you're zealous and you may go out anyway, but you're going to be knocking on the same doors week after week after week until you get the wherewithal to be able to go out to a further distance. And that's why we want to help these guys. They have literally saturated the regions that they live in, and they need this tool to be able to spread the gospel further and plant more churches.
With some of the national directors a couple years ago, when I was in Africa, we traveled on motorbike everywhere. I felt like I lived on a motorbike, and those guys were so grateful. If he's a director around like Kisumu, Kenya, we just went all over the mountains. He was so thankful for that. But the other guys don't have anything. Yeah,
and give them a motorcycle, or motorbike really is more technical. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing to them. And like you said, Daniel, the funny thing, you can buy a bicycle in one country, it might be $70, and the next one is $300. But the motorbikes are pretty much standard.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go. That's really weird.
And, those funds also cover a helmet, registration, taxes that have to be paid to the government, etc. So when we come up with a price to purchase these, we try to cover all the bases so that there's no surprises later on. So it covers everything that they need.
And on a side note, I often hear from a sponsor who's interested in getting a motorbike for the preacher of how they're going to be able to afford maintaining this. And it's fairly simple. As right now, they're often paying for a bus fare, for a taxi to get from A to B. Mm-hmm. Now they can use those funds to fund their own motorbike, to buy the gas, to do the repairs. And it doesn't really affect them monetarily wise, switching from one to the other.
And even if there is a problem with it, labor is so cheap in third world countries.
Yeah. The parts are ubiquitous.
Here we spend $50 on a part and $300 on the labor to put it in. There they spend, probably $20 on the same part and $1 on the labor to put it in. So,
and they're very, very fuel efficient. I mean, these things will go forever on just a gallon of gas.
Yeah. So it's not a pleasure tool. I mean, I know pastors that people in the village will come to them. Maybe their child got bit by a cobra or something. They need to get them to a clinic. Well, the pastor can put the kid in his lap and take off on the motorcycle and save his life doing that.
Yeah.
So it's a good tool. It's not really a lot of money. It's something if you're willing to help. It's not like you got to spend $8,000 or $10,000 on a motorcycle.
And even if you don't have $1,250, I can pull out my wallet. I don't have that much right now, but hey, I could put in $50 or $20, and it all goes into a pool. And when there's enough money in there, we buy another bike.
And what was neat was that I was recently in Charleston, West Virginia, at a pastor's conference, and I met a guy there at the church who loves motorcycles. He's a retired brother. Their son is a missionary, I think in Argentina or Brazil, one of the two. I don't remember.
He's a truck driver, right?
Yeah, well, he's retired, but he wants to give to missions.
Right.
So he took a job with the understanding that whatever I make, I'm going to give to missions.
So he lives on his retirement fund,
Mm-hmm.
and he does a job where he drives a truck, and he uses his income from that to support missions.
He gives 100% up to missions. And he asked me, he said, "Do you guys ever have a need for motorcycles?"
Constantly.
I said, "Well, yeah, but why?" He said, "Because I love motorcycles, and I love giving motorcycles to national preachers." I thought,
That's great.
whoa, call the paramedics. I'm about to have a heart attack here. And here we had just heard from, I guess it was Randy Starwalt or somebody in Kenya saying that their guys need motorcycles. Well, boom, boom, boom. And he was delighted to give those funds to help 4 guys with motorcycles.
It's amazing how God presents a need and then fills that need.
Yeah.
Before you even know it's been filled. It's
Yeah.
incredible. And it happens every day. It's the most amazing place to work, the Final Frontiers. It's what you see here day to day, it'll blow your mind. It's incredible.
Yes. Now, speaking of needs, we've just updated our website over at finalfrontiers.world, and you can now view our projects page. This isn't a complete list of all the projects we're doing, just some we wanted to highlight. So if you head over there, you'll actually find motorbikes for India. That's one of the options that you can give to. If we receive more, which I think we're looking for just over 5,000, I think it was. If we receive more, obviously we can then buy more, and we can use those over in Kenya as well, and hopefully in the future in other countries. There's also, right down at the bottom of that page, a completed section, so you can look at our past projects just from last year. We've got the Honduras project, so delivering the power packs, and also the Peru over at the Yene, and Daniel and Josh are heading over there just next month, so be in prayer for them as they make that trip to see how things turned out down there.
Right, yeah, that project has been concluded. So we're going down there just to kind of document what happened, what were the results of this project since it was completed. So that's something I'm really excited about. Been wanting to go down there for about a year now, and just one thing after another happens, and it throws the trip out of whack. But this time, everything's set. We've got our ticket, so Lord willing, one of us doesn't end up in the hospital or something, then we're going down there. And so that's going to be really exciting.
That is going to be, I'm so excited about that trip. I'm so excited to get back to the Sapauwa River area, where a lot of our trips out into unreached territories has started, and being able to see Wilbur, we've talked about him on here before, and just see what those national preachers have been able to do, and just capture the testimonies in some of those villages, some of the villages I've seen in the past, but now getting to go back and realize that every family has the gospel now. Every single one of them, whether they can read or not, they have the New Testament in their language, and they have a gospel message of someone preaching salvation at the beginning of those. It's exciting.
Very exciting. And speaking of projects, we have another one that's in Honduras.
This was another one of those things where we were planning to raise funds for this, and then all of a sudden a guy calls on the phone and gives us the money for it. But those who've been to Honduras know about what we call the Coffee Church. It's a village high up in the mountains, a little over a mile high, and everybody up there grows coffee. So everywhere you look, you see coffee plants growing. One of our preachers there named Fidel Benitez, I think is his last name, started a church there in that village probably 3 years ago. He was having to walk back and forth, and it takes literally a day to walk there. So it was difficult, to say the least. Last year, we took some funds that somebody had given to help buy what we thought would be motorcycles, but we determined that for Fidel and for one of our other preachers who lives high in the mountains, that a four-wheeler would be better for them. And it was just a few $100s more to buy a four-wheeler. So we got one for those two guys, and Fidel since then has evangelized 2 other villages that are further beyond that one. And then the other guy, Jorge, has evangelized 3 villages with his. So again, these tools you give them are great. But Fidel has a church up there that meets under a tree. And I like it. It's beautiful. But the property right next to that tree or right behind it is for sale. And he gave us a fair price. So we have already raised some money to buy that property. I think we might be $1,000 shy or something like that.
I think we're, for the project as a whole, which is the property and building a building, we're
43%.
43%.
Yeah, we need to raise money now to build what will be a church building and a feeding center. Now, look, right now we're feeding them on Sundays, all the kids that come, and we're feeding about 200 kids there. Pastor Steve Ware in Tabernacle Baptist in Orlando funds that. For $100, he's feeding 200 kids every Sunday. That's $100 a month, not $100 a Sunday. But once we get a building, we can have a regular feeding center there, eventually feeding them every day. And also it'll be a benefit to the church because it's all right to have church outside. I like doing that because then unbelievers they would never go into a church building, but they'll stand around and listen to what you got to say, and eventually they come to Christ. The problem is when it starts raining.
It rains a lot.
Yes.
About 4 or 5 months out of the year, it's raining most every day. So then you're literally standing out in the rain, and at that high of an elevation,
It gets cold.
it gets very cold. I mean, if you live in Wisconsin, you'd probably break out in a sweat during that rain. But for most people, cold weather with the rain, they
50,
get
60
sick.
degrees Fahrenheit from 90s.
Well, there's one little carport there, kind of a lean-to carport. And we try to crowd everybody into it, but it's a one-car carport. Now imagine trying to put 200 people into that thing. So when I'm there, they're all crowded inside, and I'm literally standing outside with other people, just being drenched with rain while the service is going on. So they really do need a building. So we've got that on the projects page. You can look and get more detail.
Yeah, we're 43%, 43% of 32,000, so we're getting there.
43% of 32,000 is still a little chunk of money.
So that's one of the other projects you can find there on the website. There are 5 other ones that are currently active. As I said, it's not a complete list, but we didn't want to overwhelm people when they visit our website, when they see all the projects we're currently doing. So please feel free to visit. Definitely pray for these projects, and if you're able to donate, that will definitely be a blessing wherever you put it.
I just wanted to mention, too, I just got back from a missions conference in Iowa. I traveled back last night and got to present Final Frontiers there, especially Smugglers. Talked a lot about Smugglers, but really all of the ministries of Final Frontiers. And I had like 60 magazines I put in that suitcase, and they were gone. It was like, I looked over there, and there's 2 left right after I had talked. And so the teenagers just completely took everything, and they were excited about what's going on. They're coming up to the table, looking at everything, looking at the video screens and the ministries and all of those things. People filling out cards and wanting progress reports and all of that. And so it was an exciting time. Myself and several others, we got to train and teach even things for the boot camp. I got to teach all kinds of things. I got to teach about world religions. I got to teach just all kinds of mission subjects that we did there. But what was exciting was to see teenagers there. This is the missions conference at Harvest Baptist Church in Fort Dodge, Iowa, this Ignite Missions Conference. And there were 38 teenagers that were just crying, people burdened for missions, and 38 of them surrendering to want to be somehow involved in missions in one way or another. And I think there was like 35 others that just surrendered and said, God, I'm not running from you anymore. Anything you want to do with my life, it's yours. And so it was a really neat time for us. It was inspiring for us. It was neater this year than it was even last year. So that was a blessing to be able to get back from that and to be able to present Final Frontiers there.
I want to ask everyone listening to pray for our ministry in the Middle East. I can't really give any details because I don't know much right now. But this past Sunday, early Sunday morning, one of our main people there was assassinated. And I cannot even begin to explain to you how important he was. Jesus had his 120 disciples, and of that he had 12, and of that he had 3, Peter, James, and John. Well, Sunday, James was killed, is about what it amounts to. So it is a devastating blow, not just to that specific country, but to the entire region, because our brothers and sisters all work together from country to country since they have a common language and common Savior. So please be in prayer for all of our people, because those who did that deed have sent out word now that he was the first, that they're going to pick us off one by one. So we're going to a very critical time now. We need a lot of prayer for our people there.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of our podcast. If you want to learn more, make sure you visit our website at www.finalfrontiers.world.
Would you like for world missions to be fresh and exciting in your home? Here at Final Frontiers, we are hard at work to produce a full-color magazine report with inspiring stories, important global facts, and missions opportunities and updates every quarter throughout the year. You can sign up for your copy at finalfrontiers.world.
Welcome to the question and answer session with our founder, Jon Nelms. If you have any inquiries about missions or our ministries, please feel free to visit our website and click the radio symbol that says Heard Our Podcast. Here you can get in touch with us and write your questions in the comment box. We hope to hear from you soon.
So tell me, what were your goals when you started Final Frontiers?
In all honesty, I had none. I know that sounds bad to people who believe in planning and all like that. In fact, I approached a church in Des Moines, Iowa once, a large church that was interested in supporting us, and they gave me a form to fill out, and it asked for my 5-year plan and my 10-year plan. And I just wrote them back and said, I have no plans. Just wherever the Spirit leads, we'll do the best we can do. And they didn't like that answer, so they didn't give me any support for our ministry. When we first started supporting preachers, I did say to my wife, Juanita, I said, I hope that by the time I'm 60, we can have 100 preachers. That would be great. I could die with joy in my heart. Of course, I was 30 at the time. So if there was a goal, and I didn't set it as a goal, but that's the closest I ever got to it, so it would be to have 100 preachers. Well, in the first 4 years, we acquired 34. And I thought, well, we're on our way. But then in the next year, the 5th year, we took on, I think, around 150 preachers that year. And I guess that's when you're supposed to sit down and say, okay, we reached that goal, let's create a new goal. But we didn't reach that because I was striving for a number. We're just, a farmer goes out to plant a field. He doesn't count the seeds he's got and then calculate how many ears of corn is my goal to get out of this. He just plants the corn the way he's supposed to plant it. He fertilizes it. He takes care of it. And as the scripture says, the Lord gives the increase. And so that's the way I've always looked at our ministry. Like I used to say to myself, I hope that by the time I die, we would have had a million people saved. Oh, my goodness, we passed that a decade ago. I think we're having close to 1 million saved every year now. So my goal, just do the best we can do with what God gives us, and then let Him take care of the results.
Your inquiries and comments are important to us. If you have questions or perhaps subject matter you would like to have addressed on the show, please visit finalfrontiers.world.
As Americans, we always look for shortcuts and unearned recognition. Gone are the days of awarding trophies to those who excel above their peers. Excelling now means merely to participate while doing no more or less than anyone else on the team. Growing up, we and others could judge our intellect and grasp of a subject by the letters A, B, C, D, or F. One letter spoke volumes. Now all we get is an acceptable or needs improvement. By what criteria and by whose standards is acceptable determined? Personally, I don't want an acceptable pilot flying me anywhere, or an acceptable surgeon opening my skull, even if acceptable is superior to needs improvement. This same mentality of shortcuts to recognition has infiltrated the church as well. Gone are the days when the title of missionary was earned by personal sacrifice, untiring effort, and ministry accomplishments, in lands where your very presence was both obvious and perilous. Today we teach our church members that if they give a tract to the waitress at lunch, then they too are a missionary. Those who make such statements innocently diminish what a missionary is biblically. Is that what we think missionaries really do? Just pass out tracts? Our devoted pastors teach us God's Word, but so do Sunday school teachers. They both teach, but there is a difference. If we have taught that being a missionary is so simple and the job requirements so easily attainable, is it any wonder why raising missionary support is so difficult? And why would we expect our young people to be interested in doing throughout their adult life what they already did as a child? Truthfully, we dishonor the calling of a missionary and minimize the importance if its requirements can be so easily attained. Missions is not the little leagues, it's the major league. And churches, it's time to play ball. I'm Jon Nelms. To learn more about missions, order a copy of my book, The Great Omission, on our website at finalfrontiers.world.
You've been listening to the Final Frontiers radio show, funded by sponsors like you. Thank you so much for joining us. Through the funding of national and native preachers, we endeavor to effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. If you want more information, visit www.finalfrontiers.world. That's finalfrontiers.world.